the Minutemen podcast, everybody. My name is Don. I'm here with my co-host, Clay.
Yes, sir.
Clay, how you doing, man?
Doing good.
You know, we've been, this last week has been crazy.
What happened?
Apparently, the red wave came and, like, the tsunami flooded the United States. We owe everybody an apology. We had no idea what to expect.
Yeah, I mean, not really an apology, but more of a...
I'm still in shock.
Yeah, and I think I said in the last episode, I said that if we knew before December that I would be shocked, well, consider me shocked.
I'm shocked.
Because, everybody... I really knew that he was going to have a strong showing. And my biggest concern was if they were going to let him. Do you know what I mean? Like if there was still going to be those shenanigans from 2020 that they were just going to dust off and put right back into play. And
it was too big. They didn't have the firewalls in place. So the Democrats, I don't think they had the firewalls put into place, especially within the swing states or the non-voting or the non-ID states. They didn't have it in place. The firewalls should go in so that they can go in and block it.
But what did Trump say at the beginning, or during his campaign? He said, "Make it too big to so they can't."
And it was huge.
Exactly.
I don't know. I'm the way I look at it is everything's happening for a reason.
Sure.
And my again, I'm not here to. You said to literally enjoy the moment.
Yeah.
Right.
Enjoy the good days.
Enjoy the good days.
Yeah.
And I do enjoy the good days. My thing is that I'm a believer of history, of what I've seen and what I felt and what I've been through, and as you are. And I vividly remember the 2020s, the 20s of the mostly peaceful protests. Mm-hmm. And I love the fact that the team that he's putting together, and we're going to talk about this team briefly, the fact that Bobby Kennedy, Elon, JD, I mean, the first time a Marine, right, Mr. Producer, go, hoorah, or actually it's Semper Fi.
Yeah.
And it's exciting. Look at Tulsi Gabbard.
Well, and Tom, is it Homan?
Tom Homan.
The ice guy,
ice baby.
I'm telling you, he's saying some things that get me all tingly inside.
I can only, and it's exciting because I watched him completely obliterate AOC and her bartending, mentality of separating families. Yeah. And the reality.
And he told the chair during that depot or whatever you want to call it, testifying before that committee. He told her up front. He said, "Listen, you work for me. I'm a taxpayer."
Right.
And she's saying, "You will respect the chair. You'll respect the chair." And he's going, "You work for me."
Yeah.
And the fact that guy has the cojones to say like, no, man, this is a circus and you're not going to talk to me this way. I love that.
I think it's exciting. Don't get me wrong. It is exciting, but I look at both sides of the coin. While I'm excited to see, because he's the first president that actually has followed through with what he said he was going to do. Mm-hmm. The globalists hate that. The fact that he knows what he knows. The fact that they've tried to kill him twice. Mm-hmm. The fact that the inauguration hasn't happened yet. Mm-hmm. We still have that time frame.
Sure. It's
now but look at look at what's happened globally. So they've already agreed to buy all the natural gas from us, the EU, or not the EU, but the World Economic Forum. Mm-hmm. Okay, they already know that the tariffs. They already know that Putin's like, "Yep, I'm ready for peace talks." You've got the Gaza and the Hamas,
the whole Hamas, Israel.
It's like, okay, we're trying to, because what's happening is that after Afghanistan, when we lost 13 of our Marines and our soldiers died on the field, and that entire fiasco of the way that happened, the world saw us as a weak and frail country with a leader that had no idea he was even the leader.
Absolutely.
And so now people are realizing, wait a second, the American people, we the people, have spoken. It's exciting because it became so bold. I remember we were sitting there at your place watching the results that night. And it was midnight, and I'm like, I'm starting to fall asleep because, you said at the last episode, we don't know if we're going to see the results because we thought they were going to drag it out until the very end.
I genuinely did not think that there would be any chance whatsoever that we would get it called
that quick
that night. Like I really
still
did
couldn't
not.
believe it. But you look at, okay, so look at Clinton, right? So look at the first woman that he beat. Thank God. I wept at his inauguration because anything to keep that demon out.
Yeah.
Yet when they pulled out and they said, yeah, we don't know when the results are going to be. That's exactly what the Clinton campaign did. They backed out right at about 11:30, 12 o'clock, and they disappeared because they knew they lost. I think that's exactly what happened here.
Oh, it absolutely was. And the parallels to when Kamala's chief of staff or whatever came out and said what he said, that was pretty much exactly what Hillary said. Like, hey, go get some rest, come back in the morning. We're still fighting, rah, rah. And, meanwhile, Fox is calling it. And then, CNN and MSNBC, they get pulled dragging and kicking and screaming till they finally call it. And it really blew my mind that we went to bed that night. Because I stayed up until Trump gave his speech, his not acceptance speech,
right.
But his victory speech.
Yeah.
And I went to bed like I cannot believe that it happened that quickly.
Yeah, and see, I didn't know until the next morning.
Yeah.
And for me, I was like, I'm not falling asleep on anybody's couch. I'm going home.
Yeah.
But you look at what's transpired and the way that it went down. And I want to talk about Washington State for a moment, because I've had a lot of my former friends, my friends have reached out, my close friends, of people that I've confided in on certain topics.
When you lived up there.
When we lived up there. And I really, you spend 8 years under a tyrannical government. Okay, you spend 8 years under an environment where the attorney general is pulling the puppet strings in the political realm. Did you know that there were 3 other Bob Fergusons on the ballot? It was the funniest thing ever. And he was so pissed that there were 3 other ones besides him. There were 4 Bob Fergusons on the ballot. It was hilarious. And he pulled a press conference just whining about the fact that he should be at the top. The reality is that the village idiot Jay Inslee, because that's exact, and I don't care. He knows that I think of him like this. The fact that he did not control the shots, but Bob Ferguson, the attorney general, actually pulled the strings. Who walked into the governorship in Washington State with no campaigning?
Yeah.
Bob Ferguson. And people kept asking me, why'd you move? Washington is not a business-friendly state. Boeing moved out of Washington.
Right.
I'm surprised Starbucks is still up there, but then they fall into that same category of that environment. But if you think for a moment that when an attorney general says, if you want to cling to your Second Amendment, we're going to knock you back to when the Second Amendment was written, and you walk into a gun shop and you can't even get a safety detent spring for an AR-15, you could literally smoke sticks, muzzle loaders, archery, semi-auto handguns with a 10-round magazine, bolt action, lever action. That's it.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
So my heart goes out to everybody that's still up there. And we're talking, what we're going to, we're talking about this tonight is, when we talk about the prepping, we want to talk about the Minutemen mindset.
Exactly.
And we talked about why, again, coming down here, why did I leave? Bob Ferguson is the reason why we left.
Well, I think and I don't know Bob Ferguson. I don't know.
It's irrelevant, and he's a tyrant.
Well, and that's what I'm getting at, is that regardless of whether it's you moving out of Washington or, I meet people all of the time that moved from California or some other liberal leaning city or state, and they've moved here to the piney woods of East Texas, and they're finding freedom. And it's new to them, and it's refreshing to them. And what you was really fleeing from is what you said at the very end was tyranny. Is a free people has a natural urge to seek out freedom. They have a natural urge to seek out liberty. Those that would be ruled are most comfortable living under tyranny.
Sure.
And what we're seeing in some areas across the United States is that there's that splitting away of people that want to be free, people that are comfortable with the soft tyranny that we are currently in some areas that's currently under that.
And may your bindings fall lightly on your wrists.
Yes, yes. So there's a ton of people, man, ton of people that are in the same boat that you was in, and our hearts do go out to them. But I will say this: as long as you don't bring your crazy politics with you, the great state of Texas.
I did. I brought my Constitution.
Well, you know what I mean.
I brought my fire. I brought all of my firearms, and they're legal here. It's incredible.
No, they, the great state of Texas is. I mean, Elon moved here.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of stuff going on, man.
We do, and the thing about it is, there was a saying, "Don't California my Texas."
Yeah.
Right. I get that, and for me, it's coming home. This is where I was born. And again, long time ago, raised in the Northwest. We already know that story, whatever. But we talked about earlier when we were discussing the show tonight, and the prepper mindset, the Minutemen mindset, it's critical, because we started out an episode or so ago about the top 100 things that'll disappear, which are actually more of a prepping list. It's a revised list. We made it through the 11th, which was great. We got a lot of emails this in the last couple of weeks on, hey, can you send it to me? So this is a new podcast. We're trying to get all of this up and running, and we'll get it to you. So yes. So, Mike, Eric, Rick, and Beth, we will be emailing it out to you as soon as tonight.
Awesome.
Yeah. So they emailed it through contact at Minutemen Podcast. But one of the comments that I had made and Mr. Producer Jacob had brought up, as far as, what if you live in a big city? Mm-hmm. And my response was move.
Right.
And you brought up a really good point. Well, how long did it take you to move? Mm-hmm. Because you need a landing space. You need an environment. You need a job. You can't just uproot your entire family.
You need to know what community to move into.
Exactly. And that's where that takes time. Mm-hmm. There's a great book called Strategic Relocation. Alex Jones promoted it for a long time.
Okay.
Strategic Relocation. Amazing book. We should probably put it here in the list of our amazing books.
The Shelf of Knowledge.
The Shelf of Knowledge. That's perfect. The Shelf of Knowledge. But when it comes to prepping, when it comes to preparedness, when it comes to this mindset, my favorite concept is you have to have the tools, you have to have the knowledge, and you have to have the wills,
the mindset.
The mindset,
yeah.
And that mindset, when you look at the colonists, okay, the guys in the images behind us,
yeah.
It was a different generation, obviously, 250 years ago, but they were self-reliant. And being self-reliant is not an easy task. It's very tolling. It's very stressful. It's very, we've gone so far away from the agrarian lifestyle. How does that person that's in Dallas or Seattle or whatnot prep for this? Because like you said, what if the cell towers go down? What if? I'm looking at, dude, I'm stoked that President Trump is President Trump. I'm stoked that J.D. Vance, the youngest vice president in history, and he's a freaking Marine.
Yeah.
Looking at Tulsi Gabbard. Oh my God, I love Tulsi.
Yeah.
Look at Bobby. Look at Elon. Look at Tom. Look at this entire group of people that have come together, and we the people said enough is enough. Now what?
But they are not our saving.
They're not.
They're not our savior.
We have one savior.
Yeah, exactly. And with what you're saying, the mindset, the tool set, and the skill set, I think it's so important. We talked about this off air. It's so important to understand that you can have, like when you say move out of the big city, absolutely, man. If that would be the best thing to do in a big city environment.
Sure.
Get out. It's not possible for many people. However, there are steps that you can take to make it possible.
Sure. There's
steps that you can take to make your situation more sustainable, to make it a little safer. There's my big thing is this: there is no cookie cutter way to prep. There is no cookie cutter way to have that Minutemen mindset. because we are all different individuals.
Yep.
We all come from different backgrounds.
Sure.
And we all currently live in different environments and different circumstances. There are some people that they know the truth. They they completely agree with everything that we're saying on this podcast. But maybe they're a single mom that has to work two jobs and is just doing good to put some type of meal on the table for the kids.
And I got an answer for that. Shelby Gallagher, who's married to Glenn Tate, who wrote the 299 Days series, she wrote a 3-book series based on the single mother perspective in Oregon.
Sure did.
Called I think it's the Great
State.
Great State.
And it lays it out.
It lays it out.
It lays it out on the small things you can do, and it goes back to what we said. I think it was during that first 101 things to get, or it goes into the mentality of, if you need one can of soup, buy two.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you can just set aside a little bit of money,
right,
just say, okay, this is for an emergency,
right,
this is for an emergency. And that's what, in essence, not to ruin the story, but that's what this character in the Great State started off as.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a little bit here and a little
in
bit
Eugene,
there.
Oregon.
Yes,
of all the most liberal places on earth, Eugene, freaking Oregon.
Exactly. But that is my perspective, is that there is no, like, if you think, you know, Mr. and Mrs. Viewer, if you think that you can read a book and that it is just a cookie cutter, okay, these are the steps, there's that is your guide. That is the guide to, okay, these are the cups that you need to fill.
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to fill those cups?
Exactly. And so when we talk about the Minutemen mindset, and we talk about this list, Benjamin Franklin, here's our quote for tonight. Tell me and I'll forget. Teach me and I'll remember. Involve me and I will learn. That is the beginning of the Minutemen mindset. If you don't surround yourself with like-minded individuals that have the same beliefs, that have the conservative values, the homeschoolers, the homesteaders, the people who just want to learn how to mill flour and bake sourdough bread, you got to start somewhere. And this has been a lifestyle for us for many, many years. Now, we haven't been living it as much as we'd like to because we're in the process of rebuilding. Mm-hmm. Why? Because we escaped a communist state.
And sometimes life gets in the way, man.
Life does get in the way and everything else. And for us, over the last 20 plus years, it's been one thing at a time. And it's been a battle. There's been times where my wife of 27 years didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
But then there were times, especially during the pandemic, we're like, okay, we're eating sourdough every single night.
And I think that's important to talk about, Don, is that anybody that tells you, whether it's, you know, YouTube star or author or whatever, that it's all hunky-dory and there's never days that, like, I don't want to do this, or they're lying to you.
It sucks.
They are lying to you.
It is.
And they're, I don't care how good of a prepper you are, there are days that you get up and you go, I have really dropped the ball on A, B, and C.
You will never be totally prepared. That's one of the biggest hangups that I struggle with, because and I tried to share this knowledge, because you know me, you've known me long enough. I try to learn a new skill every 6 months, whether it's reloading, whether it's canning or preserving or milling lumber, or, you know, be learning these skill set. It's not easy. It's the priorities that I've turned off the television, except for YouTube, because we don't ever want to turn off the University of YouTube, because that's where a lot of people go for that knowledge.
Yeah.
And that's what I always recommend, is to get onto the tube, and because Rumble's not there yet. Rumble doesn't have the viewership that YouTube does.
Yeah.
But you look at the original Minutemen YouTube channel. It used to be Bullets for Freedom. And I cast and reload and manufactured, because then YouTube deplatformed us because we were manufacturing ammo.
Yeah.
But that's a skill set.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
You got to start somewhere.
You do. You absolutely have to start somewhere. And I don't know. That's just the main thing that I try to tell the viewers, or not even viewers, but people that I
people
talk to.
in general. Yeah.
Because there was a certain individual that came to me some years ago and was really just at the very beginning of this journey. I think I may have talked about this before. I put him onto some Mark Goodwin books, and it totally changed his perspective. Matter of fact, I think it was American Exit Strategy that I put him onto.
It's my favorite book.
And yeah,
That is my favorite book of his.
And he came to me later and he started asking all these questions like, "Hey man, how do you do this and how do you do that?" And me and you had a long conversation. The great or the thing that we need to do better at in the prepper community is not telling people what to do, but rather explaining the situation and explaining what we are doing. And they will, if they are genuinely, earnestly seeking information and seeking to be more prepared, they will come to the conclusions that they need to come to on their own.
Well, years ago, an attorney friend of mine and I wrote a book called Proactive Planning in a Reactive World. And that was the key point, is that people will not react. They're not reactive. They're not proactive. They're reactive, excuse me. And it's like getting a shot. You know that needle's going to pierce your skin, but you're sitting there, and all of a sudden that needle pierces, and then you react. Benjamin Franklin said to prepare to prepare for failure to prepare.
Yeah.
And scripturally, it even says, store up, making sure that you're preparing and that you're preparing for the lean times.
Yeah.
And because I feel that we've fallen so far away from the agrarian lifestyle, but I think people are waking up. They're realizing that the big pharma and the big food manufacturers, these corporate farms with all the glyphosates and Monsanto and all they're killing us. Look at Appeal. Look at what's his name, the Microsoft dude. I should know him.
Bill Gates.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, there's absolutely an awakening that's going on, and with that awakening, this was my message out there. There's going to be new people to our community, if you want to call it like that. And we shouldn't be better than them.
Nope.
We shouldn't act better than them.
Nope.
We should remember, if you've been prepping for 20 years, what was it like 21 years ago? Who were you like 21 years ago? And what type of person did you wish would have come up beside you and said, "Hey, let me show you what I've been doing," not in any type of judgmental way, but as a teacher, as a mentor. And when there are those hard questions of what about this, what about that, people learn so much better if you just, let's walk through that. What does that look like?
Sure.
And if you walk through a situation, that's what I do with my children. Like if they say, "Okay, well, what about?" Well, you tell me. Let's walk through this. And I use, people have to build on that critical thinking, and they have to go, because we live in a world that you don't have to use your critical thinking on hardly anything.
No.
But in a high stress decision making environment, your critical thinking skills have to be on point. So as we get these new people into the prepper community, even though I hate calling it that, we'll call it the mindset, or the Minutemen community. How about that?
Minutemen mindset.
The Minutemen community.
Yeah.
When we get people into that, welcome them in and say, we'll mentor you. We're going to show you. You know, I used that analogy off air of, if you were a new believer, a new Christian believer, and you're just starting to scrape the edge of that faith, you know,
and the amazing sacrifice that Christ gave to
absolutely. It would be pretty daunting if somebody threw the book of Revelation at you right off the bat and says, "Okay, let's go into pre-trib versus post-trib, and let's do this and let's do that," and you go, wait a minute.
This is not what I signed up for.
And you have to think about it like that, where you go, okay, just as we would disciple, you know, the discipleship of a Christian, of going, "Hey, you're a new believer. Let me show you what this is all about. Let me help you along this journey."
Right.
We have to do the same thing in the Minuteman community, where we say, "Listen, you're new. Let me help you with your mindset, your skill set, and your tool set."
I think when you have that mindset, it becomes that lifestyle. I know that it's hard because we all live incredibly busy lives.
Yes.
You know, you made a comment about, well, what about the single mom we talked about, with the single mom with a couple kids, or what about the two parent, the actually two gender parent, mom and dad,
Yeah.
and have 5 kids, and my thing was, I know with when my kids were younger, my son mainly, I taught him how he was involved in reloading ammunition at 8 years old. I have a video of him at the range with a Glock
Mm-hmm.
19,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember videotaping him back with my big camcorder at the
Mm-hmm.
time.
Mm-hmm.
You would never know that he was 8 years old until he turned around, and people were like, whoa. You see videos out there all the time teaching gun safety, teaching manipulation and gun manipulation, firearms manipulation. I taught him how to reload. I taught him how to tie flies. I involved him in everything that I was doing. And I remember my wife was like, you're doing all these different things and it's so expensive. And yet here he is now with his own son. I took him archery hunting for the first time at 10.
Mm-hmm.
He's now in his 30s. I'm looking at my 5-year-old grandson with a bow.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, that's generational.
Mm-hmm.
That's going, so when I take that concept of food prep, of the garden, it doesn't take much. If you live in the city, if you live in an apartment, there's, small amounts that you can start. Imagine of getting out. People are always looking for a way to unplug.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, are we taking the time sitting there watching the YouTube channels? Or are we actually going out and putting what we saw on the YouTube channels in action?
I think a lot of it is, I've met a lot of parents that checked all the boxes
Mm-hmm.
in doing the things with
Sure.
their kids.
Yeah.
And they have absolutely no relationship with their children.
Right.
None.
Zero.
For me, I think a large thing on the parenting aspect of, because we are busy and we're trying to balance all of this stuff, but knowing that you are establishing a relationship with your kids, not a friendship, and a relationship,
Right.
a parent and son or parent daughter relationship,
Yep.
that is giving them the tools to grow up to be men or women,
Mm-hmm.
patriots, Christians, and not just Christians in the label, but
Oh.
actual God fearing
Mm-hmm.
Christians.
Right.
And for me, building a relationship that they know no matter what may come down the pipe, they know that they can turn to me
Right.
for guidance, not to tell them, not to solve it for them,
Right.
but go, hey, let's talk this out. What do you think?
Do you think that because society in general now is so busy that do you think that, I mean, I look at it, Satan has a lot to do with it. I mean, because people are so busy that they stop focusing on inward, on the family.
I see a lot of people that, and I want to make sure that this is not judgmental,
No.
in any way.
It's facts and
But
logic.
I see a lot of people that, they watch their children grow up through a chain link fence. And you will not find I mean, man, I love me some baseball. Like, I love me some baseball. That was my sport growing up. When I got into junior high football, man, it is fun to me.
Yeah.
However, I keep it in perspective. And I understand that there's a lot of good lessons that can be learned on a sports field. A
Yeah.
lot of good lessons. But, the scripture tells us to build your house upon the rock, and not upon the sand, because when the rains come, the house that's built upon the sand will wash away.
Yep.
For 99.99% of the population, sports is sand. It is playing in the sand, and it's fun, and I
Sure.
enjoy it. It's a great time playing in the sand, but it's sand. And if you are building your identity, and if you are building your future, and if you're building everything about your child
Mm-hmm.
in the sand, there's going to come a storm. And that storm is going to wash away everything that you thought you were building. So with me, whether it is taking my daughter or my son fishing,
Mm-hmm.
taking my daughter or my son hunting, um, just walking down the driveway with them.
Sure.
Hey, let's take the trash down to the road.
Oh,
And
we got to walk
yeah,
again. I want to take the side by
yeah,
side.
exactly,
Right.
exactly. Or even a side by side ride where
Right.
you just drive around
Sure.
with them and talk to them.
Sure.
And understanding, I've had my son ask me before, um, why he didn't get to do other things. And I'm just going to leave it generic.
Right.
But why he didn't get to do other things that maybe some other kids do. And my son's a pretty decent athlete.
Yeah.
And he's not old enough to understand yet, but it's about trying my best. And I fail, man. I know I fail, but it's trying my best to build on the rock.
Right.
And trying to give him a foundation that when the storms come, because man, the life will throw storms at you when you least expect it. And when a storm comes, you have built your faith, your everything about your being on a rock, that it's going to be windy, it's going to be messy, it's going to be rainy, but you're still going to be standing when it's all over.
When you bring the sports analogy into it, which we all love sports, rodeo was my sport.
Yeah.
The fact that your competitor can kill you and get away with it is just epic to me. But, I look at, there was a meme going around, but it was a meme that was true, that if people cared as much about their country as they do about their sports team, we wouldn't have these issues. And yeah. I take that with a grain of salt, but it's true because so many people identify with that. And I'm not here to discredit any of that. What I'm here to do is we have to look at priorities, because here we are. We just went through the most amazing landslide of an election. My question is that you had 60 plus million in 2016. You had 60 plus during the first, before Trump. Even you look at, we've had a steady influx of votes, and then all of a sudden in the 2020 election, there was 81 million. Where's that extra 20 plus million go? We'd like those back type thing. Basically, a buddy of mine told me, he's like, yeah, they're back in the grave. I get that. But we have to look realistically at this, because it's not just about the mindset. It's about the reality that they are going to do whatever they can to stop them. You look at the blue, we don't have blue states. We have blue cities.
Right, right.
A lot of people that don't realize that the conglomeration of liberalism is in very tight environments. That is where you need to be very mindful of.
Yeah.
I don't think here in East Texas we're going to have those kind of issues. Same in Eastern Washington, where we were from. We did have Antifa show up. We were on the rooftops in full kit. They went to another direction. Same thing in Idaho. So that mindset of the Minutemen is, what are we willing to do to protect our communities, protect our families, protect our way of life?
Right. So I think that if you try to merge the two, what you were just talking about with sports and all of that, sports teams, I think a large portion of that, Don, is that we have been blessed to be in a country where we did not have to worry about the enemy within, or at least we thought we didn't.
We thought we didn't.
Yeah. And what we are seeing is, over the past, 10, 15, 20 years, there's this awakening that is going, wait a minute.
Something doesn't
feel right. This is not passing the smell test.
Right.
But at no fault of our previous generations, hey man, on Sunday afternoon, you sit back and you watch the ball game.
Sure.
Like that's what you do. And that's just kind of how a society was built over the last 30, 40, 50 years.
Right.
Where it just kind of got lackadaisical.
Bread and circus.
Yes, bread and circus. And what we're seeing now, and it's going to take time, just like it took time for us to let our guard down.
Right.
You look at coming out of World War II,
yeah,
and you go straight into Korea, then you go into Vietnam, then you got the Cold War, and all this different stuff.
And the Gulf War.
But it took time for us to kind of go, okay, we don't have to worry about all that stuff.
Right.
You know, it's going to take time for a large portion of the populace to go, wait a second. And that's what I'm hoping that we can do. And we talk about this off air, man, where it doesn't matter if we're talking to 30 people or 30,000 people. We're still going to be here having this conversation, because I believe, at least with me, this is something that I've been called to do. And I'm not going to deny doing it again.
It's time to be bold.
It's time to be bold.
Right.
But we need to understand that it's going to take time. It's going to take time for these people to wake up. And that's why the Minutemen mindset that we're talking about, bringing these people into the fold and going, okay, hey, let's talk about this skill set. Let me give you a 10-minute video on, we talk about this. Let me show you a 10-minute video on how to do it.
Right. And that's why we want to bring in some gear reviews. We want to talk about certain things. I know you got some water purification, water storage.
Right.
And we talked about water last time. For those of you, we talked about the top 100 items.
Yes.
To disappear in the SHTF environment. People are going to say, well, Trump won. We don't have to, he's not our savior. The reality is, look at 2020, the mostly peaceful protests. Now is the time. If prices are going to start coming down, we've seen an incredible inflation rate because our dollar's not worth what it used to be worth. But now is the time when everything we think is going to come back to normal. If in fact, Lord willing, that the inauguration happens in January, the next 4 years is going to be an absolute show. I mean, it's going to be crazy.
Scripture tells us many times that that God will give a people a reprieve.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what happened in 2016.
Sure.
And I think that's what happened on Tuesday, a week ago. We have to make sure that we don't think that it's all like with the analogy that I just used, we don't need to go back Sunday afternoon and turn the ball game on. Mm-hmm. Now, and that's a analogy, so to speak.
Right.
Dallas Cowboys stink anyway, so I'm not watching them. But it's an awakening.
Mm-hmm.
One person I'm really excited about, I know we're going to get to this list, or at least a little bit of it on this list. One of the people that I'm really excited about, and I never would have thought I would say this a year ago, but Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Bobby Kennedy.
This guy is saying some things in the food, in the healthy food industry, in the food market.
Yep.
That is really, really, really getting me excited.
He put the FDA on notice. Did you see that?
Absolutely he did.
That was freaking brilliant.
Absolutely he did. And because of some other things that I have going,
right?
That is very, very exciting, because the more freedom that local farmers and ranchers can have to not just produce food, but produce food for their community.
Amazing.
When a community can produce its own food, and sell it in its own community, that community becomes more and more stable, more secure, and more self-reliant.
And more healthy.
Number one, more healthy.
Absolutely.
So I'm really excited, and I'm hoping that it's not, a disappointment. But I'm hoping that a lot of these insane regulations, which I could go down rabbit hole after rabbit hole on some of that.
They're so insane that the Amish actually figured out a way to come in and vote.
Yeah.
Because they've been under persecution for decades, but
yes,
even
absolutely.
more so in the last 3-4 years.
Yeah, they've been being arrested.
But you look at our former, the health and whatever, the human health and Department of Health, whatever Bobby's going to be taking over. But you look at that man thing that thinks it's a woman that's running it now.
Yeah.
But yet, and you look at Bobby, I mean, Bobby's ripped at 67 years old.
Sure.
The thing is, make America healthy again.
Yeah.
And that, you're right, it's community and it's learning. So people within their communities to learn how to garden. You don't have to have full gardens. Learn how to grow carrots or cucumbers or and then when communities come together, they are stronger. And that's when I've always said, surround yourself with like-minded individuals. Homesteaders are an amazing group of people that are just on the rise now. The homeschoolers. We always say, you send your kids to Rome, don't expect them to come back Romans.
I agree with you, and I want to look at it from a different perspective. Find you a friend that maybe isn't a homesteader, has the same morals, the same values, the same political fears or frustrations that you may have, and y'all do it together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it can feel alone when you're doing it alone. Just like it's intimidating to go into a gym on January 2nd. You know what I mean?
Right.
When you've been out for the last, 14 years or whatever.
And then come back on the 5th and nobody else is there.
Yeah. But just like it's intimidating to go to a gym on January 2nd.
Right.
It's intimidating to go into a homestead meeting, and you're completely by yourself and you have all these people that have all these great skills, and why aren't you making your own soap? Why aren't you making your own bread? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that?
It's overwhelming.
It's overwhelming, and it can feel judgmental.
Yeah.
And I speak to the preppers and saying, stop, be better.
Right.
And 2, I speak to the new prepper in saying, listen, find you somebody that can go into this journey with you.
Sure.
And y'all can bounce ideas off of one another. And even if it just starts off by y'all coming over to the house every Saturday night and watching a YouTube video on freeze drying or something.
Right.
It can start just as simple as that.
When we talk about the prepping groups, I know where we were up, that we had the Upper Valley Assembly and the Lower Valley Assembly, and the Lower Valley had been doing it for years, and they had probably 200 families. And I remember going in for the first time, and it's something that it was a community that came together. And when we talk about this, fear is always about getting over that first step. Once you step into that realm, yes, it's overwhelming. It can be. 20 plus years later, it's still overwhelming because you look at everything that you're falling short on, you'll never be truly prepared. And that's where you want to surround yourself with the like-minded individuals that have that Minutemen mindset.
Yeah.
When you talk about the items, the last time we talked about this was vegetable oil for cooking.
Yeah.
We already know that vegetable oil was originally used for gear oil. Tallow, beef tallow is what we want to look at. Charcoal and lighter fluid. That's something important. The Bic lighters, charcoal. Yeah. There's great YouTube videos on how to make it yourself.
Well, charcoal's fairly easy to make,
and it's cheap.
And if you can get it, and again, it goes back to like if I lived in an apartment, I would probably be more inclined to have charcoal than I would firewood.
In an apartment, so I would recommend propane. For cooking, is that what you're talking about?
Well, yes, I'm saying if you have a grid down scenario where hey, you've got a barbecue pit on the back porch of your apartment, that would be a lot more beneficial than having.
I would recommend propane.
No, absolutely,
because charcoal keeps burning until it disappears.
Until it goes away. Right. Yeah,
this is one of the items that charcoal and lighter fluid disappear quickly. We talked about water containers.
Yes.
So having enough storage, water storage. Mm-hmm. There are bags that you can buy that if you know that it's something's going on and the water pressure's still on, you literally put it in your bathtub and fill it up, and you've got hundreds of gallons.
So I've got a story on that.
Yeah.
Several years ago, me and my brother were down in Houston when a hurricane came through. Mm-hmm. And it's a long story, but we were stuck out on the interstate. And we got to a point where we couldn't go any further. It was, water
flooded
was everywhere. It was flooded over. So me and my brother had to swim across the little bar ditch and get onto the service road. And we walked up into this little dive, hotel that charged us literally like $200 to spend the night. And we went in, and the very first thing I did, because I didn't have any of my gear, I didn't have anything.
Oh, yeah.
very first thing I did was I checked the water, made sure the water was still working.
Sure.
And I filled up the bathtub and the sink and every single container that I possibly could fill
Sure.
up because I didn't know
Yeah.
how long we might have to be there.
Right.
And luckily it turned out fine. The next morning we were able to get out of there. But yeah, having something like that to where as soon as you know, hey man, this may be bad. And those are huge bladders,
Right.
like huge bladders.
And they're cheap. Amazon's got them for like $30.
Yeah.
You know, when you look at the water containers, again, we talked about rain collection before. You got the big IBC totes. You got the 55-gallon blue water tanks. There's entire books on how to make and collect your own rainwater, but water is critical because
Yes.
we can live without food for weeks. We can't live without water, especially filtered through
Yeah.
coffee for more than. But so when you talk about propane heaters, we talked about charcoal. I would always recommend the 1 pound because they're cheap right now.
Yes, they
and now
are.
they have the adapters that you can come off the bigger tanks
Yep.
to keep them full.
Yep.
Especially in an urban environment on a patio barbecue, you can shut it off. Something happens,
Yep.
it's more safe. Number 17 was silver and gold.
That's
now
odd.
it's
Why
odd
would
being,
you? Why would you need silver and gold?
you know,
Isn't that paper? Mr. Jacob? Do you have any?
you have any of that funny
Do
money?
you have any of that funny money that we can borrow? From
Right.
You? No.
You know, when you look at bricks that are going onto the gold standard, you look at when Nixon took us off the gold standard, you look at how inflation has destroyed pretty much everything. Gold has always been the rich echelon, and silver has always been the poor man's gold. I love silver. I've loved silver for many years. I'm a stacker. That's just something I've always done. And the numismatic, you know, I don't care about all the fancy stuff. I'm a Star Wars nut, and they have Star Wars silver coins, but I don't buy
pay
them.
that much.
But I'm not exactly.
Yes.
I love the I'm a
Yeah.
huge Morgan fan.
I like
Atmex.
Morgans. I like and we want to stress we're not financial advisors. We're not,
No.
we're far from it.
Yep.
But I've never looked at my investments into silver as I'm going to get rich. It was never an investment in order to turn a huge profit. It was an investment into hedging my cash on hand, so to
Right.
speak, my ability to purchase, my purchase power.
Sure.
Because in an economic collapse, which
Could be coming again.
well, there's like I think the CEO or a former CEO of JP Morgan recently said like, hey, it's coming.
Well, they're prepping it because of what's about to happen.
100%.
Right.
But regardless,
Yeah.
Atmex is good.
Atmex, that's one of my favorites.
Yeah, Atmex is good. There's another one I can't remember the name.
They're up out of Idaho.
Yes.
The one up in Idaho.
Yes.
Regardless,
I'll tell you
yeah.
what, we'll think
Lead.
about it.
I'm putting this on there. Lead. Right.
Oh, yeah.
For me, precious metals is silver and lead.
Yeah.
For those of you who have watched the Minutemen Coffee before on the Bullets for Freedom and Liberty, so I would get old junk sailboats and I would literally buy them in people's backyards and harvest the lead that comes out of the sailboat keel. I just gave away one of my secrets. But learn how to cast your own rounds, get into the powder coating, learn how to swedge your bullets and get to the right diameters, because that's the most inexpensive practice rounds. So you're not using your factory ammo.
Yes.
Do not carry your ammo like that you've made. Always carry factory ammo. That's just a gun safety thing. But silver, gold, and lead. That's my three favorites. Buckets. 5-gallon buckets. You can never have enough food grade buckets. Buckets. 5 gallons are the best.
You can put so much. There's so many different applications. So food
You
storage,
can stack them. It's like bubble gum. You can boil them. You can fry.
Yeah.
Buckets.
food storage, water storage, like water collection rather.
Water
I shouldn't say
collection.
water storage.
No.
Water collection, food storage, water collection. You can have go buckets instead of a go bag. You
Absolutely.
can have go buckets.
Yep. I love buckets.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
gamma lids for the buckets.
Yeah.
They're cheaper now.
Yeah, absolutely.
When we first started buying them, I think 15 years ago, we were paying
Yeah, they're
10, 12 bucks a piece, and now
they're
they're
not
like
bad
4.
now. Yeah, they're not bad.
I think even Harbor Freight, my favorite store, is selling them now. Baby supplies for those of you who have young children. Baby aspirin, the 81 milligram hard aspirins. Get in there. Diaper formula. Remember, we saw the formula. I'm not a big formula fan because you look at the ingredients that they put into the formula, but I understand
It's better than nothing.
Better than nothing, exactly.
And there's a book I'm trying to remember. which book it was that I've read, that it's a theoretical situation, but
A dystopian novel.
yeah, dystopian novel.
Right.
Thank you. That was talking about that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have someone in your group, if you have someone in your little area that is either pregnant or has a young child or anything like that,
Or about to become
or
pregnant.
about to, yeah, exactly.
Isn't that what the big drug companies
Yeah.
say?
Make sure to put that into your preps.
Yep.
Because man, that you don't want to, I would rather me go hungry
Right. Than a kid.
than my kid.
Well, and if you think formula is expensive now, wait till it's gone.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I still can't believe, I remember when my kids were little, formula was like $15-20 a can, and now it's 60.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And I don't know the answer to this, and I'm going to ask YouTube land
Okay.
to put a comment on there. I don't know how long formula would keep if you put it in Mylar with a
Vacuum seal it with an oxygen absorber.
with an oxygen absorber.
That's a
I don't
great
know.
question.
I don't know how long that would keep. So anybody that knows
Yeah.
the answer to that, put it in the comments below, because I don't know the answer to that.
Any of the baby supplies, I know that Southern Prepper One was a big influence on me years ago when he first got started, and Canadian Prepper now is a big one, and then City Prepper is a big one. There's a lot of, and then of course Glenn and Shelby on Prepper
Yeah.
2.0. But when you talked about the baby supplies, the diapers, cloth diapers, they're going to make a comeback. I mean,
Yeah.
who can afford? I saw it weird. I very rarely go to a grocery store, and for some reason we walk by the baby aisle. I can't believe the price of diapers.
Oh yeah,
And they haven't changed in 30 years.
yeah,
It's insane. That just shows you inflation.
inflation.
When you look at laundry supplies, again, we're on number 20. So let me do a recap real quick. Vegetable oil, we talked about the garbage there. For cooking, again, we all agree, lard and tallow. Charcoal, lighter fluid, any water containers that will hold water because it needs to be stored or transported. Propane heaters. We talked about propane cylinders. No, we didn't. We talked about we need to talk about propane cylinders, because propane is good the day you fill up your tank, and it doesn't
Yeah.
ever go bad. I'm a
Yeah.
huge proponent for propane.
Yes.
Silver and gold and lead. I'm going to add that for number 17. Buckets. They stack. They look pretty. You can get them all different colors. I like blue better than orange, but that's just my opinion. Baby supplies. And then let's talk about laundry supplies, because in every dystopian novel, people start to stink. And you want to make sure that you take care of your clothes. So laundry supplies for manual use. Imagine the power going out, grid down, you're hand washing again, things like that. Cook
Yeah.
stoves. Laundry supplies, we know that. Make your own soap. Again, we talked about, you can't just go and start making your own soap. You got to learn how to do it. I know that Jacob and I've talked about this before on, making laundry soap. There, YouTube.
Laundry soap is, I would say this: if there is something, especially if you are a new prepper, or say that you're a wife that's wanting to get into this prepper, laundry detergent is one of the easiest things that you can do.
And you can make it for like $1.
It really is not
Yeah.
hard at all.
It's like borax.
It's borax, and then you can put, like, we've even made some with like kind of an essential oil.
Yeah, like a lavender oil or
Yeah,
something.
lavender
Yep.
oil, so it has a good smell
Decent
to it.
scent.
Yeah, decent scent to
It's
it.
not the chemical gain scent that
Yeah,
you get.
yeah.
or the-
Yeah, and I'll tell you, the stuff that we use, it's so refreshing
Mm-hmm.
that when we put it in the dryer and I come home, I can actually, if the dryer's running, I can
Yeah.
smell it from the outside.
Nice.
Because it's a nice,
And it's
aroma.
super cheap to make.
And it's super cheap to make. So get on YouTube, look up do it, DIY or preppers, laundry detergent.
Yep,
There's
absolutely.
a million different ways to do it. So
Compact washing machines, there's plungers, there's all different. Again, this is more YouTube stuff that you can learn. When you talk about cook stoves, again, I'm a huge proponent of propane. You want to be able to, when the lights go out, you still have a heat source, whether it's through wood stove or propane. Again, for those that are living in urban environments, my recommendation is get out as soon as you can. But yeah.
propane cook stoves, if you can't, for whatever reason, have propane, they make some really, really cool rocket stoves.
Yes, they do.
That will get hot quick.
Yep.
Once they get going, now
Right.
they're wood fuel, so it's going to take a little while to get it going. But once it gets going, man, it can cook water quick. And then also, we have to mention, especially for on the go, some type of jet boil system, like the small little
Not the
fuel.
sterno cans, but
Yeah, not the sterno.
the hotter burning
Yeah,
ones.
yeah.
Yeah. They have the little tablets that you can light and.
Well, no, I'm talking about like I guess it would be butane
Oh yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
you connect it to your burner
Right.
and you
You're
have your
talking about
jet
the butane
boil.
cans that
Yes,
go in and then
butane
you have that
cans.
burner. Yeah.
And
They're
those
super cheap.
those are great. You throw them in a go bag or a go bucket, and you have the way to purify water, to boil water for cooking, whatever.
So, and the last one I want to talk about tonight before we go into the last topic and before we shut the show down, vitamins and minerals. They're cheap now for the most part. Stock up. They, normally don't go bad very long. I'm a huge proponent in fish antibiotics. Why? Because they're the same as regular antibiotics. They just put a fish label on it, but there's a whole list of things that you can do and to obtain them. I know they're putting a lot of regulations because, again, government hates competition.
Yeah.
But having that Minutemen mindset and the
Can
skills.
I add something to that?
Add something.
Jace Medical.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We
Jace
talked about
Medical.
Jace Medical.
We talked about it. We don't get paid a dime.
Nope.
The only reason I talk about it is because one, it's out there. There's a bunch.
There's a lot of them.
Well, there's a bunch of. I think he's been on Beck and like different people. I mean,
Sure.
Jace Medical is pretty well known.
Yep.
But I've used them, and I'm going to tell you, it is such a smooth process.
Yep.
That you are insane. If you have some type of high blood pressure, cholesterol, anything like that, you are insane if you do not get your medication.
Because they can do like
you
up
can
to
do a
6
year.
months. You can do a full year with them.
full
That's right.
year of your prescriptions.
If your doctor will prescribe it, or they actually re-prescribe it.
You send a photograph of your prescription bottles.
Okay.
You then consult with another doctor online.
Mm-hmm.
The doctor asks you a questionnaire, kind of goes over this, looks at your current prescription, makes sure that you're not having any issues, and says, yes, I will prescribe you a year's worth of that medication.
That's awesome.
Now, obviously, if you like take some type of controlled narcotic, that
Sure.
they're not going to do that, and nor should they.
Right.
But, like I said, with some type of blood pressure or whatever it may be, you can have a year's
Insulin.
worth.
The problem with insulin is
refrigeration and
Yeah.
insulin, even if it's refrigerated, I don't think it keeps very long.
No, it really doesn't. Remember, 1 second after William Forstein,
Absolutely.
the main character's daughter
Yeah.
was struggling with
So
type
I didn't
1.
want to jump in there.
Yeah.
I know we're coming to the end, but Jace Medical is a great asset. People need to check it out.
Yeah, so when we talk about vitamins, you talk about ivermectin because we all know when the government says it's not good for you,
Yeah.
there's something wrong. Ivermectin saved me during the whole pandemic environment. Actually, my wife saved me by smuggling that into the hospital. I always just recommend, and I'm not a big pill taker. I have a hard time to even take an aspirin, let alone Tylenol. As I get older and now I'm milling lumber, it's very, very physically demanding. And I've learned a lot from that, just physical aspect of that. When you have that prepper mindset, it is labor intensive, and it's going to be very difficult for people. It was difficult for me too, especially when you become in a sedentary lifestyle. It's just a matter of, again, surrounding yourself with like-minded individuals, learning and getting involved with the community. If you can't find one, start one. It's pretty simple.
Absolutely.
It's just a matter of, if you have that angst in you and you feel like there's something going on that would you rather have it, not need it, than need it or not have it? Sort of an important topic,
It is.
So it's not a matter. It'd be great if we were all independently wealthy and you could just, write a check for $500,000 and you've got the entire compound and all the other cool stuff there. But the reality is, with inflation in the last 4 years of this nightmare dumpster fire we just went through, now is the time to prep
and stay positive.
I'm trying.
I'm telling you, a positive attitude is contagious. And you know what else is contagious? A negative attitude.
Sure.
And you want to be an asset to your team and not a liability.
Right.
So having a positive attitude, having a positive mindset, not a false positive where it's like, oh, gumdrops and lollipops, but saying, okay, hey man, I'm going to take my good days. Like,
Sure.
You're not going to steal those from me.
I did. I struggled that next morning. I'm like, okay, I thank God he won, but okay, now I really need to prepare.
Yeah.
Now we do. The reality is we need to prepare if and when the prices come down and if inflation can slow down. Texas already, the fuel prices are already a lot lower.
Yeah.
So we want to bring more of this kind of content. If you like what you see, like what you hear, obviously I'm going to ask you to click and like, subscribe. We're trying to get as much of this content out. We're all really busy with our own lives and businesses and things that we're doing. Share this with friends and family. We're trying to get this posted on this list so that you can have it. You can follow along, sort of like a color by numbers environment.
Yeah.
Pop-ups.
Yeah.
I try to make light of it, but we're not out of the woods yet. I will be as positive as I can.
We're far from it.
It's now the middle of November, and we still have a month and a half to go. I just pray for this.
We're far from it.
We're far from it.
And when Trump gets in, we're still not going to be out of it. So what I would like to tell them, what I'd like to tell the viewers is, to join us on this Minutemen mindset. And it doesn't have to be jumping in, head first and blind. There are people that want to help you with those mindsets, help you with the skill sets, help you with the tool sets. So join us on this. And if you have a topic that you want discussed on here, we're a small podcast. We're just
getting started.
We read every comment. We read every email. Send us a comment. Send us an email saying, "Hey, I would really be interested in this topic." Or we're hoping to maybe do some gear review type things that
I've got a lot of ideas on the gear reviews.
Tactical gear or prepper stuff.
Prepper stuff. Yeah.
And if somebody goes, "Hey, I would be interested in what your opinion is on this piece of equipment," let us know. That is something that we want to have, that interaction with the viewership.
Yep, absolutely. Send us an email at contact@Minutemen Podcast. If you go to minutemencoffee.us, use code podcast, you're going to get 15% off your first order. The Tree of Liberty, it's still thirsty. Be prepared. Remember, I always say this, and it rings so true right now. We're not out of the woods yet, guys. We need to really prepare now and think about as everything come down. Would you rather have it, not need it, or need it, not have it? So I'm going to end the show tonight. Thank you for being here. Remember, arm yourself, educate yourself, and for God's sakes, defend yourself. We'll see you next week, guys. Take care and God bless.